Remember that great place you stayed in years ago, which comes to mind each time you think of a good hotel experience? Well, behind every such outing are an army of people looking to give you the perfect homely atmosphere and ambience. Today, hotel management is an industry that attracts thousands every year, keeping it all together and liaising with different departments, all to ensure the hotel puts its best foot forward is the general manager. He is responsible for the day-to-day management of the hotel and its staff, overseeing budgeting, food and beverage options, and housekeeping, to name a few.
The general manager of a hotel is supposed to look after all the departments in the hotel. So the way we begin the day is we have a morning meeting at 9:30 in the morning, which is attended by all the respective heads of departments. So the housekeeper, the F&E manager, chef, engineer, chief engineer, IT manager, HR, accounts head, sales manager, training manager, the list doesn't stop. Yeah, but we try and make sure we take grasp of what happened the previous day in terms of what we could have done better to make sure we looked after more guests.
And there's plenty of exercise involved. One of the daily routines of the general manager is to walk the length and breadth of the hotel, checking in with the different departments throughout the day. The front office is the first department a guest interacts with when they enter the hotel. It is therefore important for the front office to always be on their toes, ready to greet the guests and help them plan their day better.
We take out a lot of things which begin with checking with front office as to what the plan for the day is, how many check-ins are supposed to happen, whether we have any group arrivals. We check how many airport transfers are to be arranged for. So we have something called the daily flash report. We go across that. So yesterday was a good day for us because we were sold out. Yeah. After that, the next thing that we go on to check is the arrival report in terms of what expected arrivals do we have. This is a report that's always prepared by the front office manager. The front office manager also prepares various reports like the check-ins and check-outs that are supposed to happen.
The restaurants and the coffee shops of the hotel are headed by a food and beverage or an F&B manager. He's in charge of a team that includes restaurant managers for individual restaurants and hostesses and stewards to ensure that perfect dining experience. The housekeeping team of a hotel is responsible to add the wow factor in a hotel. We all like our rooms to have freshly laundered linen, fluffy pillows, and this is where housekeeping comes in.
We're now entering the main kitchen. So kitchens are broken down in terms of there's an executive chef, which is then followed by a sous chef, who's responsible for their own respective kitchen, as the executive chef handles the operations of the entire hotel. Underneath the sous chef, you have your CDPs, who are chef de parties, and then followed by all the commis.
Okay.
Yeah? So this is how all the kitchen things work across the world. When we're looking at someone when we're looking at hiring someone for the kitchen, the aspects that we look for is passion for food, the knowledge which they have been carrying with them, and the ability to work under a lot of pressure, because the guest always wants their food in those 15 to 20 minutes time, and no matter how busy or quiet the restaurant is, the food has to be served in those 20 minutes.
With the Indian hospitality sector growing at 14% every year, according to India Brand Equity Foundation, it's boom time for the industry. Making sure the Indian experience is incredible isn't always easy, but for those involved, it can be immensely satisfying. In New Delhi with Stephen Anthony, Kriti Mathur for NDTV.
Right, so if you believe that is your cup of tea, how do you go about it? Mahesh Peddy with us in the studio. Thanks very much for joining us and looking to answer all those queries that we have coming our way, Mahesh. But up first, there's just so many more options today than say there were 15, 20 years ago. And even in hotel management, like we were discussing earlier, there are, of course, all these training institutes as well as, you know, India's top hotel chains and their own institutes. So is there, how does one really compare with the other, or is it even fair to compare them?
It's not necessary for you to compare, actually. There are quite a few good institutions that have opened up over the past many years. Some because there was a supply constraint, so the companies got themselves into the training of a good manpower. And some have come. Recently, ECOL has come up at Lavasa, which is a fantastic hospitality institute across the world. And same is the case with the IHM series that the Tourism Ministry has started. Then you have this welcome group, the Taj, the Sheraton, and all these Oberois and all people having their own institute. Now, each of them will also ensure that the students are placed beyond their own companies, mind you, because it's important for them to be accepted as a currency,
and
which is
usually the case.
Absolutely. So, what the companies institutes do is to ensure that you at least have a fallback option.
Right.
But having said that, IHM, ECOL, Lavasa and all place most of the students. No big deal about it. So don't worry about where you're doing it.
Right.
As long as you know that you're doing it to the right institute, which understands what hospitality is about.
Right.
The important thing here, Natasha, is to ensure that you join an institute where the core of it is hospitality, which means that typically you talk about it as a customer versus a guest. You don't get into a hotel where you're treated as a customer. So the aptitude is very important of whether you can have a smile despite the tiredness that you have and all those things. I'm sure you in media go through that whole thing, right?
Personality fit.
Absolutely. So as long as you understand that you need to go through that grind, where you study in any of these good institutions is just a matter of choice that you make at that point in time. Don't worry about that. But first understand your aptitude, whether you are guest friendly, whether you can carry a smile on your face, come what may.
Are you cut out for it or
Absolutely.
not? That's of course, and that can be a tall order for many.
Absolutely.
I would imagine that. So keep all that in mind also. It might look very glamorous on the outside, but let me assure you, everything that looks very glamorous on the outside can be a lot of hard work, blood, sweat and tears behind the scenes. Well, let's get started right away. Ishisha has a question.
Why the salary is too less in the industry? The work is too much, we work really hard, but still we are not paid for what we really work.
Too much work and the remuneration not...
I think that's, you go to any profession, you'll have that complaint. First 3 years, you say, I'm getting a stipend, but I need to learn. And I'm still a student because I'm learning during the process. Many things fall in place in your head. And you start learning and you start enjoying it.
Well, Prashant also has a question. Go ahead, Prashant.
A lot of the officials at high positions are from foreign countries. So why is that? Why is there less belief in your own manpower, in the manpower of your own country, in your own abilities?
Most hospitality chains are global chains, but for the Oberois or the Trident or the Taj. And even the Taj and the Oberois have people all over the world because they have hotels all over the world. They'll keep moving people. Just because you see a few foreigners sitting in your hotel where you're staying, it doesn't mean that Indians are not working elsewhere. The same thing also happens. And two, on the culinary side, the chef side, you want to eat Italian from an Italian chef possibly, and that's the speciality of the whole thing. You want to go to Ming's kitchen or you prefer Ming's for a Chinese thing. So it's important for us to understand that in a globalized environment, these things are bound to happen, and don't think that because you're seeing a few foreigners where you're going, staying and eating or whatever it is, doesn't mean that it's the end of it. Because there are a lot of people who you go abroad and you'll see a lot of Indians who are working there and they'll take care of you. So it's just a game of globalization and we are just a part of it.
Right. Well, another question coming from Asthik.
I have very less options to pursue my further studies in India. So could you please suggest me where should I study to develop more advanced culinary skills in India and as well as in abroad?
Quite a few culinary schools, but I would still suggest that go back to the basics of going to the Welcome Group or the Taj and all, because they actually have different schools within that, and they will ensure that you're slotted wherever you are. It's important that you have the interest, obviously, which is culinary skills. But once you do that, I think these hotels will be able to slot you better of where you want to be. And having said that, there are quite a few culinary schools in the country. Do your research. If you want, come and talk to us at career360.com and we'll be able to guide you. But there are quite a few good schools in the country at this point.
Right. So that's, of course, another place where you can get that help from. Ronaja also has a question. Go ahead, Ronaja.
What other things that needs to be done to get into the travel sector or to get a job which is cooking and traveling, both, which includes both?
This entire thing of tourism versus hospitality versus culinary, tourism is slightly different from the other two. The other two are hospitality, this is tourism. And both